Hello, awesome people. I hope you're having a great day today. Today we're taking a look at Shirley Jackson's short story, The Honeymoon of Mrs. Smith. A short story, 11 pages long, that I knocked out last night for the first time as a part of this Dark Tales collection that was published by Penguin Classics in 2017. Picked it up a couple months ago with the idea of doing a deeper dive into Shirley Jackson. Shirley Jackson is one of the most beloved American horror writers. I've read The Lottery, loved it, probably would have given it a 10 out of 10 if I reviewed it for his channel when I was in school. I also read for this channel and loved it, the novel The Haunting of Hill House. So, having read these two classics of the horror genre, I wanted to go back and reread some stuff and do a deeper dive into her collection as a part of this channel, which does reviews on horror, science fiction, and fantasy. And I was definitely in a horror state of mind. But I'm a few stories now into this collection. I'll link to you in the comments below. But unfortunately, I haven't come across one that's a horror one yet. And this is the fourth short story in this collection. Now, I'll be honest with you and upfront with you. This is my least favorite short story that I've ever read by Shirley Jackson. It's barely getting a 6. It's like a 5+. It did not really hit me very well. So I'll be honest with you right up front and say, there was a time when I did collections, I might give you like the 4 or 5 best short stories and so forth from that collection as reviews. But now I'm doing a deeper dive into them and giving you all the collections and so forth. And this is still Shirley Jackson. It's still well written. You know, there's a reason why she was such a beloved writer and such a key player in a lot of as an Americana writer of horror, and so this is still a well-written short story, but it didn't grab me until I was pages into it, and it's not that memorable. I read it last night, and I only remember a few basic points. It's not that memorable either. But the key sort of concept of this short story, our main character is Mrs. Smith. She's also a friend with a Mrs. Jones. And I believe that these two names were chosen in order to show how commonplace what's going to happen is. And how anybody could do this by choosing the two most common last names in the U.S. So I get what Shirley Jackson's going for with these two names. Mrs. Smith, who just got married about a week ago, and Mrs. Jones, who's one of her close friends. But it doesn't do well because their names are hard to interchange because they're so common and we regularly skip past them, right? And so it's really difficult to read Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Jones and so forth. But the key sort of concept is that Mrs. Smith, our key character, point of view character, for 11 pages, just got married a week ago, and she's her community is beginning to have second doubts about the nature of the person to whom she's married, and that's sort of the key concept of this story, where it's going. Now, it doesn't have an ending. So also that to me is a key ending. It doesn't have the ending you were predicting. It doesn't have a twist ending, right? It doesn't have any ending at all, which is not a big hit for me. Again, I get the point. I get what Shirley Jackson's trying to do by not having an ending, but again, I don't. It doesn't resonate with me as something that I see the value behind, right, as a reader. But again, I'll try to keep these reviews spoiler-free for you, so I'm not going to go into a deep dive as to what the ending was or that sort of thing, just to simply say that, it didn't have one. And that did not sit with me, too, and is another reason why it's not getting a higher ranking as the other things in this collection or that I've read by Miss Jackson have been for you. Now, even though we do reviews of horror, science fiction, and fantasy, obviously the big key question is, why am I doing reviews of a Shirley Jackson collection? Well, it was called Dark Tales. It was published by Penguin Classics, and she's a classic horror writer, so I figured it would be horror. But none of these have actually been horror so far. But again, she's Shirley Jackson. Stephen King wrote some novels that weren't fantasy, like the Gunslinger series, or horror, like most of his stuff here and there. If I read one of those for you, I don't think anybody would complain. I also did some boxing short stories by Robert E. Howard, a key player and one of the most influential fantasy writers of all time. But I did some boxing stories, but nobody complained. Nobody said, hey, why are we spending time with boxing stories? There are even short stories in these key fantasy characters, like there's one in the Solomon Kane series by Robert E. Howard that doesn't have any fantasy aspects into it. It's just us. It's just a regular short story, well, with a lot of action. I also remember that being true when I was doing a deep dive into Conan. I remember coming across one Conan story that doesn't have like any magic or any beasts or anything or any demons or anything like that. It's just a regular short story. So that happens, right? You know, and I'm not going to not include them because, you know, they're Robert E. Howard. And again, the boxing stories, nobody complained. Nobody said, oh my gosh, this isn't a boxing channel. What are you doing? Right? So I'm doing the same thing here. Shirley Jackson is a beloved figure of Americana, particularly with its horror stuff. So doing a deep dive into Shirley stuff, I felt like would be definitely something worth your time, even though, you know, these short stories aren't. Consider that's the 5+, rounding it up to a 6. Probably giving it like a 5.8 or a 5.7 or 5.6, rounding it up to a 7. I'm sorry, rounding it up rather to a 6 overall. And it's my least favorite thing I've read by Shirley Jackson so far. Although I've only read one novel and 5 short stories, to be fair. So I'm still very new into this thing. But there you are. I'll go ahead and leave you to it. Have you read The Honeymoon of Mrs. Smith? If so, what'd you think of it? If you want to talk about spoilers, I'd be more than happy to engage you with it further in the comments below, whatever your thoughts are. If you enjoyed this video, hey, why not hit that subscribe button? There's going to be a lot more of these to follow. And then finally, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and investing it and watching my video. We all have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact you spent this time with me is incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.